that you're born an Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano, and your life will be great.
How about some Donatello?
That's a nice.
Chat, I'm supposed to say, I guess you already figured it out, that John is not here, and I do not know what to say. Because after 400 episodes, I still cannot remember. What is our Ciao Paisani? But John does with a very dramatic.
Ciao Paisani, welcome to another episode of the Italian American Podcast.
Well, she did it. As you know, you have met Danielle Terry many times on this podcast, right? You're our artist in residence. Or art historian in residence. Why don't you give everybody your full title of all your academic. You were a docent at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Go ahead, lay it out there. Because today is going to be a very nerdy episode, let me say.
I'm a writer, I'm a travel advisor, I'm an art historian, but specifically, this is a very, very rare opportunity for me to nerd out because my specialty in the world of art history is the Renaissance in Naples, which exactly 3 people in the world want to talk about, and I think they're all here today.
That is not true. Our listeners and our viewers love this. That's why they listen and they watch. So we're going to nerd out today on the Renaissance art in Naples. Am I correct?
I can't wait.
So we are here today. May I call you Claudio? Claudio, thank you. You're a very important person here, so it's a great honor to have you at the table. Claudio, why don't you tell everybody out there in podcast land where we are right now?
What there?
Where we are. Where
we
are and what you do.
You can see it's the Italian Culture Institute in Park Avenue, New York.
Park Avenue, that's a very nice address to have Park Avenue.
And there is a reason that it's called Park Avenue, you know, because this building was built in 1919, and it was the first lot here. In front of the building, we could see the river. There was no building. It was the first one. So they had the Central Park from one side, and just another park in front, which, of course, now doesn't exist anymore.
And this is a beautiful building, and we're right next door to the Italian consulate in New York. We've had Fabrizio, the consul general, on before. He's been a great guest, a great friend of the podcast, and this institute is right next door. So why don't you tell everybody, what does this institute do? You're the head. What do you guys do?
So our mission is to promote Italian culture to all the Italian culture lovers that live in New York and beyond, because it's even our circumscription arrived to Boston and Philadelphia, the 3 states. So we are not focused on Italian who lives in New York. That's very important, because Italians who live in New York are welcome here, but most important, we are focused in Italo-Americans and Americans that love Italian culture, that go in our country. Here can learn or see the best, I hope, that we are able to bring in New York.
So we're taping right now in the library.
Yeah.
But downstairs tonight, in a matter of hours, almost I could say minutes, right? An hour and a half, you are opening up here an art exhibition. And that's why this all started that we're here today, because my very dear friend of many, many years, Antonio Mendola, told me he was coming into town, right? You are part of the dynamic team. You live in Agropoli. I've had dinner at your house. Yeah. You and the former dean of Seton Hall Law School, Elizabeth DeFace, are like a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
And you brought to the United States artwork, a project dealing with artwork in the town of Buccino in Salerno, right? And you brought Ivan with you. So I have put all the heavy hitters at the table, and I'm just going to shut up and let you guys talk, because I want you to explain it. This is a very, like I said, very nerdy episode. Explain to us, so just to give you guys a little bit of an idea. They, Elizabeth, your cousin, your dean cousin, and you built a project to restore a statue of Giovanni da Nola, right? A famous Neapolitan sculptor of the Renaissance. He sculpted a Annunciation, which is the angel Gabriel telling Mary about the birth of Jesus. And that statue was in Buccino, still is in Buccino. And Buccino was affected by the horrific 1980 Irpinia earthquake. So when the earthquake happened, the church where the statue was kept was severely damaged. And Elizabeth and you had the idea of restoring this famous work of art in Buccino, restoring it from Giovanni di Nola. But it's not here in New York. But that's the great part about this project. So why don't you explain to everybody what's happening in this exhibit today?
Yeah. It's very, very nice to see you again. I mean, we've been in touch. We are in touch often, so and it's great to stay in the city, and it's such a beautiful place as the Italian Cultural Institute, which is, as director says, the house of all Italians in New York. Well, as you know, my dean cousin, as you called it, when she says something, Antonio does it. So she's
a powerful force.
Yeah,
yes.
She's a powerful force. And she actually called me and said, listen, I'm looking for a project. This might be real. And I told her, we have several projects. No. I'm looking an art project, and I look for it in Buccino. I say, you're crazy.
Now, the reason is because your father is from Buccino.
Your father is from Buccino, especially Elizabeth's mom.
And Elizabeth's mom is from Buccino originally.
Exactly. And so she said, I want to find something to restore in Buccino. Has to be related with the cultural heritage of Italy. I was quite skeptical, to say the truth, because it's very difficult in Italy. You have to deal with thousands of things with the superintendenza, with the comune, with the curia itself. So the first thing that we focused on, that was the church. It was this church that you told us about. It was totally abandoned since the earthquake. But the church is into a critical situation. But we found inside the church there are a lot of treasures. Among them, there's these two statues. Thus, if you visit the exhibition, you will find out that the first time I saw them, I couldn't tell there was a masterpiece from the Renaissance, because they were unrecognizable. You couldn't tell. But there was a historian from Buccino that was tracing back these statues. And then we made some research work, and they are by Giovanni di Nola, which is a famous artist. Probably our nerd friend can tell us more
He's a big deal.
about Giovanni di Nola. And so we put together this exhibition with a strong technological part. So if you come over and visit the exhibition, you can wear the VR and see the statues in the church and see them before and after restoration. There's also a part with the AI that we are proud of it. Even he's our head of technology. He developed all the part that is related with AI, VR, and technology.
So that's, we get criticized. We have more criticisms. Critics are criticizing the podcast than Saudi Arabia has grains of sand, right? And we get a lot of times people say, "Oh, you only concentrate on the old Italy," right? But I don't think that's the case, because we have here really the brilliance of Italian mind, and the fact that we have the antiquity of Renaissance art, and you keep talking about VR, meeting virtual reality, right? So that's like very much the past with very much the future. Ivan, you got to explain to me, because I am not a tech person. What is Antonio talking about with the virtual reality? How is that affecting this whole art project?
I think that the new technology, like virtual reality, can give us the possibility to show this best artwork around the world. It's not easy to see the real artworks because it is in the museum in Italy, but using this technology it's possible to give the possibility to many people to see the artworks in a different way, at the beginning of the restoration and after the restoration. It's a really nice storytelling about the restoration, and you can see every part of this nice story using virtual reality and also using artificial intelligence. Our team collaborates with the restoration project and acquire the information about each step of the restoration and create a really nice digital twin of the artworks. With digital twin is similar to a software that you can use in a different way. You can put this digital twin inside a virtual reality experiences, or using in a game like Fortnite. You can put directly this artwork in Fortnite, and when you move around the city, you can see the real artworks. I think that the technology is the best way to promote artworks, especially the minor artworks of Italy around the world. Artificial intelligence is a perfect thing that can you put inside these experiences, because the artificial intelligence use the information about the restoration, the metadata of the restoration, to create a nice experiences like a cicerone that can give you the possibility to speak with the artwork and receive.
Oh, we got to put this on pause, man. Hold on. So I gotta put this in American. Listen, we got a lot of Gen Z kids who understand everything you just said, and I got a lot of boomers who they lost you 20 minutes ago. So let me get this straight. So what you're saying is that you're gonna have a person. So you said Cicerone, that'd be Cicero in English, right? So you're gonna have a real person here, live, flesh and blood, be able to engage with Cicero.
Okay.
Now, how the heck does that happen? Like, that's a big, because you guys, and don't take this the wrong way, because I don't understand this. To me, is that like a cartoon? Am I right? Like for my, how does that like?
Yes, it's like a voice on the background. You don't see the real Cicerone, but it's a voice on the background, and you speak on the air, and like a ghost give you the information about the environment. Do you imagine this experience like this? You can move around the event, and you talk with a real Cicerone like Antonio, and then after the experiences, you can use the virtual reality to see the real artworks and interact with these ghost Cicerone.
The reason why I'm such a supporter of what you're doing is from experience, right? So I've taught college now. What year is this? Oh, Madonna me, 26 years? No, 20 years? 2006 to this is 2026. It's going to be, it'll be 20 years in the fall. And I had a critical moment. So I've been doing this long enough that I was at the end of blackboards, right? And chalk.
Okay.
Lavagna and the chalk.
Yeah.
And I had a student, I would say about the spring of 2008. And I was talking about Constantinople, the city. And she said to me, but what did it look like? And then I realized, I had millennials at the time. So I born about 1987, right? And I realized that they have grown up in an interactive world, that a book wasn't enough for her. She had to see it, right? And so we had just gotten the capacity for the computer to go on the blackboard, like a computer. So I turned on the computer, and I Googled imaged Constantinople. And it was a eureka moment, because I understood that the way I process stuff, being born in 1975, was different than the way she processed stuff being born in 1987, even though there was only a 13-year difference. And she had to see stuff visually. I don't know the pedagogical terms how to describe this, right? So that's somebody born, and I can tell you what year they were born, because I remember they were the same age as my brother, so I know they were in 87. Now that's 18 years ago, right? So now I can even imagine that the kids today, the kids who are in school today, they were born then, right? So they're even more in this. So I just say from an educational perspective, like, whether we like it or not, this is the way it's going. But to say something else that I saw downstairs, so we did a walkthrough, right, to see the exhibit. And, Antonio made a great point. He's like, every priest, that it's like 500 years old, the Annunciation, right, more or less.
1526.
1526. And every priest that came in wanted to be an interior decorator.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
So you found 15 layers of paint on these two statues?
Yeah.
So what happened is every priest came in and said, okay, we need a restoration, and then somebody came in.
They look so ugly, so let's paint it. And so they were painting on over and over again on a Renaissance masterpiece. Can you believe that? The thing is that, it's very interesting your point about the new generations, because the first exhibition of the Nola that we did it in Tokyo. And Japan, as we all know, is an aging population. So I was quite, say, let's see, this was the very first exhibition. Now we know better what we're doing. But back then, We have the support of Dr. Payara, colleague, because I like to name her because she was so important to us, Professor Silvana De Maio, who directs the Tokyo Institute. Those are all these people coming in to see the exhibition. I think, okay, few of them will want to take the virtual experience. But believe me, we have 2,000 visitors. Everyone wants to go there. The aging people, the old people, the elderly, all of them wanted to take 5 minutes into the virtual reality. This was shocking for me. And I hope that people here in New York will enjoy that as well.
And the reason I brought it up with the restoration is because when I kind of got this, I didn't understand this in the beginning, right? So when I first spoke to you, I just thought that it was going to be old school. We got 2 statues from the 1500s. They're made by a really important artist. Nobody realized it. The earthquake hit, they kind of abandoned. We got them cleaned, right? So I expect to be old school. A box would arrive in New York, 2 statues, right? We were discussing before. They'd be in a glass case, and you'd go, you look at it, you'd be done. But
I would love it.
you too. Antonio made a great point, the fact that you got to get an exit visa. So to get this art out of Italy, you got to get a lot of people to sign off on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's right now, the original is at a museum in Buccino, because Buccino was an ancient Roman city as well, right?
Yes. And they have an important museum, and the statues are now under controlled temperature in a controlled environment with safety measures. So they are good with there. They very safe with there. We hope that someday on a maybe more studied exhibition, we can bring them around and we can bring them to this beautiful place to give the people the opportunity to see them closely. But for now, this storytelling, as Stephen tells, is very engaging. And also, I hope that from this exhibition, that somebody will be moved to during their vacations in Italy to get off the big circuits like Colosseum, Pompeii, etc., and take a day to go to Buccino, see these beautiful statues, see their great museum, maybe have some wine and good food, who knows. But this is one of the objectives of this, is also tell the people...
It's like an appetizer.
We have great minor arts that is considered minor, but you can have a great day visiting that in Italy.
And the thing is that, so the idea is that you're going to have the show here. People are going to get a taste for this.
Yes.
And then you're hoping that when they're in the south of Italy, they're in the Salerno, they take a detour off the, the tourist must-sees, and they go to Buccino. But to go back to it, Ivan, and the virtual reality. So I'm like, okay, I don't get this, and we're there, and I'm like, there's no statue here. And then you made a great point. You're like, there were 15 layers of paint, right? And you see the before and you see the after. But with the virtual reality, you can see step by step, right? And I was like, that's when I got it. I was like, because you can experience, with this level of technology, you can experience that statue without actually seeing it. So what did you have to put, because you're the tech guy, right? What did you have to do to make this work?
But I think that is a nice occasion to using technology and plus with artworks, because it's not easy to use technology everywhere today, because there are some fields that are especially defined for art, for this technology. But the artworks is new, and I think that the basic idea to start is to the beautiful, to move the beautiful to the real world in a virtual world. And I think that the artworks is the best beautiful Italian experiences, and move this in a virtual world can be the possibility to show this the beautiful around the world.
But that's easy for you to say. You're a tech guy, right? But how does that work in? So I'm trying to say is, for the person who's afraid, I don't know how this works. When you go into this exhibit, well, you said sounds, it's poetry. Beautiful. But how does that poetry become reality? So what do you see what I'm trying to say? When you walk into that room, how is the virtual reality going to work? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Please.
No, I think that
you got to put part of the. Let me drop it down to a lower level.
Part of the.
Do you have to put glasses on?
Yeah, well, this is part of the experience, because actually the exhibition is thinking to be hybrid. So there's a part that you saw with the panels, and you see HD pictures, and you see all the storytelling, and you see all the also the tools that the real restaurant has used on the statues. So there's a part that links this new, super new technologies with the ancient technologies and with the Italian way to work the wood, to be artisans. In this, I think that we are super aligned with the Institute mission that is to promote the Italian culture in the world. Let me say that after this is my third exhibition in the Italian Institute. I didn't know before I started this, like most of Italians, what they do around the world. And they do an amazing job, believe me. They do an incredible work because they really promote Italian work, and they are the most important part of our cultural diplomacy. So thank you again, Director, for having me here.
Now I got to bring, because I don't have John to fetter me. I'm free to run down with any road I want. We talked about all the technology. Why, Danielle, why do we got you here at the table? Explain the Neapolitan Renaissance art tradition to everybody out there in podcast land.
Well, these works of art are, kind of, you're sort of hoping that people will come to Buccino to see them. A lot of people don't even really think about going to experience art in southern Italy beyond Pompeii. People go to the Amalfi Coast and they want to think about spritzes. And this is because our conception of the Renaissance is really based in Florence. And we can call this the birthplace of the Renaissance, but if I want to get really geeky, the term Renaissance is not one that's used until 200 years after the so-called Renaissance happens. But what we have really in the 1400s and the 1500s are these centers, these cities and families that are patronizing great art and artists and architecture. And you have these artists that circulate between Florence and Milano and Napoli who are not just doing sculpture, but are doing political propaganda, triumphal arches, sculptures in churches. And Naples is not well known for several reasons, but one of the prime ones is World War II. Florence was largely spared from the devastation of World War II because Hitler liked it. He did not care about Naples. In fact, Mussolini thought he was going to leave Rome alone because he thought, the cultural patrimony here is so huge, and Rome got bombed to pieces too. But Naples was particularly bad. And also, you don't have, I studied the Renaissance in Florence because it's a wonderful place to live and study and drink your cappuccino and ride a bicycle. Napoli, after World War II, was not. Now, it's much different. So there's just not a lot of knowledge about the Renaissance in Naples. So much of it was destroyed and much of it is understudied, specifically by people abroad, non-Italian speakers. So it's something that's starting to come more into focus now, and there's so many beautiful churches throughout Napoli where you can see the Renaissance, and there really was a very vibrant Renaissance in Napoli. And then in churches like Buccino, you have all of the wealth that was concentrated in the city is also spread out in convents and monasteries and palazzi that were in the countryside. And so you have an artist who was a big deal, in the big city in Napoli, who's in this far-flung small village of Buccino.
Just to give people, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, just jump in. I think a lot of people don't realize that because there's, especially with the Italian Americans, there's a perspective of poverty in the rural Italian South. They don't realize that there was a lot of rich people making money.
Yes.
Right? And nobility and aristocracy.
And trade.
And they were the landlords. So a lot of times, your ancestor might have been poor, but the guy that was taking a part of the rents was doing well, right? Absolutely. And they spent their winters, if I'm correct, they would spend the winters in Naples, right? So they would spend the summertime when they went to go collect their rents in where they had their titles, they would count this, a baron, of that. And the wintertime they go into Naples. So with the art center, if you want to call it Naples, there was a lot of back and forth to these rural places. And those aristocratic families had the money to drop on a big artist. So saying, okay, you're a famous artist, you're in Naples, you're in Nola, why don't you come out to Buccino and create whatever, a saint they were devoted to, or the patron of the town, or just to put a fountain and stuff. Am I correct with that?
Well, you also have to think about art as a language. A sculpture let's just use the Annunciation here. I mean, this is a story that devoted Catholics know. This is the Archangel Gabriel coming to the Virgin Mary, Ave Maria, gratia plena. And art, it's hard to conceive of now because our brains are so used to images jumping up and moving around for us, which is why, virtual reality and AI augmentation is really helpful because our brains are accustomed to that. But before television, somebody sitting in a church would be looking at these sculptures and they would be interactive, which is why they were painted. And which is why when a new priest came in and saw it was old and chipped and filthy, wanted to repaint it because it was sort of a way of reanimating it. So these churches were also a way for these wealthy people to give something to the local people, give the visual language of their religion, of their shared spiritual experience, so that everybody in the church could participate.
I love that you brought that up because it was like almost like cued you. Right? Because to go into my Catholic propaganda mode, right? So many people say, well, the Catholic Church owns all this art. Like, why don't they sell it? Right? But let me just say, the idea with church art is that anybody can walk into a church. A person who's religious, not religious, Catholic, not Catholic, a person who's loaded with money or poor and has nothing to eat, and they can all walk into, now St. Peter's in the Vatican is busy, but a church like they did in Buccino and enjoy something beautiful.
Absolutely.
For free, right? So by doing church art, it was almost what's the word I want to use? Like making it equal, making it. What's the word? There's an SAT word for that. Democratic, democratization of great art.
But you also have to think of a church as this mini version of heaven on earth. So you're outside, especially in a rural society, people don't smell great. There's animals, there's dirt roads. And then you go inside of a church and you have incense and you have the singing of monks, which is supposed to be the sound of angels. The interior of a church is conceived of traditionally as a mini kingdom of heaven on earth. So when you're in that experience, you're kind of in a different realm. It's like being in a casino. You don't have a lot of conception of what's going on in the outside world. You're meant to be put into a spiritual experience in order to have a spiritual experience. And so these works of art were really intended to be very interactive, very engaging. They were, we look at this stuff as so passive and just kind of like boring today. But these things were very, very much alive. And again, why these works of art were painted, we also tend to think of a lot of sculpture, a lot of white marble sculpture that we see today, even the Roman sculpture, it's all just plain white marble. That's not the way these things would have looked. They were brightly painted, eyeballs, eyelashes, everything.
All that Roman white art is because the paint has faded.
Yes, because it was, surface level, and it's just the most, and they were using, they didn't have synthetic dyes that stay forever. They were using natural colors, so they all fell off. But these works of art were meant to engage you and for you to have a relationship, to have a conversation with these works of art.
The one thing I asked Antonio when we were going through, what I noticed in the church was the choir stalls, right? So I knew that it either was Franciscans or Dominicans that were there. But he came back and he said it was a congrega, a confraternity church. Yeah. And one of the interesting things in Italy, I could say for the South, I don't know enough about, I think they existed a lot in the North, but I don't have the basis to say it, is that the confraternities, the lay confraternities, which were basically, I don't know how to put it in layman's terms for people who didn't grow up Catholic. It's kind of like a Knights of Columbus almost. It was like a lay religious order, but not a fraternal organization like the Knights of Columbus. More like a third order of a religious order, and they would be lay people. They would be lay people, who laymen, who would be part of this brotherhood, right? And they're the ones that you see with the Good Friday processions, and they're in the habits.
Exactly.
Like we have the Congrega Fumarola Reborn, and they would get churches that they would own.
Yeah.
And the church would be their own property, right?
Yeah, not in this case, but
so the bishop could control. So the bishop controlled when you had mass. He controlled the church functions, but the actual brick and mortar was controlled by the brotherhood. So if you had these, so that was really democratized in that sense, because it was I think canonically in the 1917 Code of Canon Law, it would be a personal chapel. That would be a personal chapel that was the prerogative that belonged to the congrega. So it's even more of a democratization. That was the laymen of the town that put this together. Do you see now? I'm gonna go back to Antonio a minute. When we were talking about the development of this project, and we were downstairs looking at all the art, the exhibition, we came to the conversation of that there's so much art that's at risk in Italy, right? As you say, minor art, right? Because Italy has an overabundance of all this stuff. and it's a race against time, right? Yeah. And you were talking about other projects that you had ruminating in your head that, like you said, you could fix some of these projects, you could fix some of these statues, restoration, 10,000, 20,000 American, right? Yep. How bad was the statue when you guys went in? So when your cousin, Dean DeFeast, contacted you that she wanted to, because of all these organizations she's involved with, she wanted to do some kind of restoration work, and she gave you the budget, and you had to go base. I'm putting in simplistic terms for the interest of time. You had to go and find this statue out, right? So you go into the church. What state was it in when you got there?
Yeah, first of all, it impressed me that the church was very closed. So we just called the priest. The priest said, okay, we open the church. And he went there and he just kicked the door. And the door opens wide. And so we entered this church. It was totally full of dust. And it was this beautiful artwork, woodwork around that was disgracefully vandalized with Viva Juve and Viva Inter and Sprite all around.
That was done by morons.
Yeah, well, the first focus was
Viva Juve in Naples.
It's
a shame, man.
Yeah, it was a double problem there, actually.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But the thing is that when I called back Elizabeth, she immediately said, okay, have an estimation about the church. So she wanted the whole church. But the church is a real problem because the bell tower is not in a good shape. They need a lot of work, not only money, but also, agreements between the comune, la curia, the bishop, because it's their property. So the thing was too complicated. In the middle of many other statues with no real value, there was these two wooden statues. And then in the book I have to quote him, Giuseppe Arduino, which was a local historian. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But he was a local historian. I found that these two statues were by Giovanni da Nola. So this was the research started.
So I'll just stop you a minute. It wasn't like everyone in the town knew.
Nothing.
That this was, they had no idea. That's what they did. Stupid things, and some stupid kids were in there with spray cans and stuff like that. They had no idea the value what they had in there.
They have no idea. Probably they don't steal. They still don't. But the thing is that one of the locals, so Giuseppe Arduino, knew exactly what they were. So, and also we found out later that a professor at the University of Naples, Professor Leone de Castris, has a research on these statues, proving their da Nola origin. His method was like comparison. So he took several works of da Nola and he took all the similarities to say, okay, I'm sure 100% this statue is by Giovanni da Nola. Then, thanks to Peppino Arduino and thanks to Emanuele Catone, another local from Buccino who works from the Archivi di Stato, so in the public administration, he made some research and we found that the notary, the original document in which Giovanni da Nola sold the statues too.
So you have the backing because the notary in Buccino writes in 1527 in the book that this was
the notary is in Salerno, yes, but we found a document in which also the friars complain about the price they pay, and actually they have these statues brought by Giovanni da Nola in 1526. And this is apart from the excellent work by Professor de Castris, this is a real proof of authenticity of the statues. But this thing said, when we saw them, we have no idea they were a real treasure. You can see in the exhibition how they were and how they look now. Now they are a Renaissance masterpiece.
And this, just like I love to keep all the conversations negative. What shocked me was nobody knew how important this was. Like if you hadn't gotten the phone call from your cousin in America saying, I belong to this organization, we have money to do such and such, I'd like to do a restoration project, it's very possible they could have rotted away in that church.
Yeah.
Because the one thing, you had the statue, the Archangel Gabriel, was missing a hand.
Yeah.
So you were able to find that, am I correct?
Yeah, they were the hand, the arm
actually
rather was into the debris of the church. So we found the art. But besides that, the insects and the humidity and all the 500 years have done a lot of damages. And the restaurator told me, listen, I give this status 2 to 5 years of survival.
Had you not done it, what you did?
So that will be lost forever. So it will be a masterpiece of the Italian Renaissance. As you said before, an important artist from an important, vibrant movement like the Neapolitan Renaissance that we have lost forever. And it was also, I'm happy to be here in New York because this project belongs to New York in some way, as you pointed out. So the house of this project is New York City. And we hope that in the future...
So why don't you explain to everybody, because it was another great conversation we had, had the American input, because it was all done in a year. Am I correct?
Yeah, 1 year. 1 year. From April to April. So we pick them up in April and we deliver to the museum next April. So in 1 exact year, with respecting the budget that I had. And on this side, as I have to say, in the Italian cultural centers, institutes around the world, also in the Soprintendenza and in the Ministry of Culture in Italy, I was interacting with very young and proactive people that was there to help and not to put obstacles. And they were actually very happy that an American fund could help their budget because they have a huge heritage, but not budget at all. So that was an important part of this project, in my opinion, is the link between US and Italy, and how very simple, as you say before, as simple as 10K, 20K can actually save an important heritage.
Yeah, you know, I just want to add to that too, is that we tend to think of art because it's in museums, especially in the United States. When we see art, largely it's in museums, a place like the Met. We tend to think of it as priceless. I did work for the Met for 16 years, and I can tell you, the biggest secret of the museum world is that most of the stuff in the collection is financially worthless. Something is worth what somebody will pay for it, financially speaking. But culturally, what it means to us, that is really what is priceless. And, you know, for Italian Americans or Italian Canadians or whomever who have some means, if they actually want to do something to build up the culture that they came from, spending $20,000, which is nothing for many people, to restore a small work of art in a small church is actually really piecing together an enormous cultural heritage, and then, you know, becomes points of pilgrimage and really reignites a culture that, I mean, there's so much stuff. Just, I mean, in this, I just read the statistic recently, and forgive me if the numbers are not completely accurate. In the Centro Storico of Naples, like right in the heart of the city, there's something like 79 churches, and 38 of them are completely vacant. Nobody knows what to do with them. And they're all filled with stuff, with beautiful things, right? So then you take that and you multiply it by all of the beautiful churches and convents and monasteries around the countryside. So many of the convents and monasteries have become luxury hotels. But they all had stuff in them as well. So I think that's actually really an interesting way for those who can afford it to find a pet project in a town that you might come from, like Buccino, and see what cultural heritage you can preserve.
Yeah,
and
actually,
reignite, not even just preserve. Don't put it under glass, like reignite it.
That's exactly the thing we are putting together, also an Italian association that will pair with the American one, because the association that Elizabeth founded is actually a non-profit, and there's all tax deductible, by the way. So you don't really need to put the 20K. So you're spending that from taxes. But the thing is that we also decide to put together an association in Italy because we understood with this project how needed is to focus on some kinds of so-called minor art, because they risk to disappear.
But also, you're restoring to that place their cultural heritage and pride. I mean, so many people don't even have any idea what they have. Yeah. So many Italians have left their small towns and maybe they love them, but they feel like, there's nothing there. Well, there probably is something there.
Yeah, it is dichotomic because on this side, on one side you have that, and on the other side you have, it's our status. So, yeah. It's our, nothing is yours. for sure. So this is of the humanity. I mean, that masterpiece do not belong only to Buccino. Of course, it has to do with the history of the Buccino in the last 500 years. But the objective is everyone have the chance to see them in today and in the future.
Yeah, it's all part of a lineage. And so much of that has been lost. So much of it was lost from emigration. So much of it was lost to earthquakes, to COVID even. I mean, how many things have closed because of recent world events? And that will just continue to happen, of course. But yeah, this is a really interesting, special way to capture something and bring it back.
I got to ask you the American question. So, Italy got a lot of criticism after the 1980 earthquake because some restoration took so long to do, right? Places that are still closed. Not so much because there's a financial limit of what you can possibly do, but just with the rumors that come of just like inertia and bureaucracy and headaches. And like you said, you need so many people to sign off on it. How were you able to pull this off in 1 year? What was the magic that you did that made this happen in a year?
Yeah, it was no magic in that. I mean, the thing is, as I told you before, I wasn't expecting to have the counterpart at the Ministry of Culture, very young historians that were there to help. And they were amazed to say, oh, so you want to, great. So you got the budget for that? Yes, perfect. This is the list of the restorators. I point out to you who is actually a restorator that already worked on the Nola. So they have the real experience. And they were going there once a week for a year to check up how the restoration, whatever. And after they went to visit, they called me. And they said, listen, next week, can we meet there? So, I worked with the Soprintendenza before, like 10 years before, and it wasn't like this. So my real compliments to the new young people in the Soprintendenza, as also the young people that are around in the Italian Cultural Institute that are helping us to bring around this project around the world.
Do you think it was the youth? Is that the key? You have a global generation.
I guess so. Do
you think
I find there, the usual clerk of 10 years ago that was half bored in the office with no motivation, that will take more time. Because, you need to put the seals on this. Okay, see you next week maybe. Or, you're Italian as much as I am. So, you know what I'm talking about. But I found young people very proactive, and actually it shocked me. So I was reporting to Professor De Vries every month, and the results is in 1 year we finished the project. That was one of her, things to say. Okay, listen, not a year, but you have to tell me a date of end. Because if you pointed out the terremoto, the earthquake, often in Italy there's when you start, but you really know what you end. So she told me a date of an end, and so we were actually ahead of time this time. So Italians were ahead of time. The Americans were pretty impressed about this.
All right, so the beauty of what we have right now, because we're not taping in studio and we're here on site, we're going to go downstairs to the actual exhibition hall, right? And we're gonna experience this exhibition with the architects. You're the architects of the exhibition, from the technology end, from the programming end, from the actual director of the institute. We're going to go downstairs and give you, who are not here in New York, a taste of this new sort of art exhibition here at the Italian Cultural Institute on Park Avenue. So we're going to go downstairs now.
Okay.
So, Antonio and Ivan, we're actually in this space here, right? So when I had come, the perception I had, okay, what would be traditionally here? In the middle would be the statue restored from Buccino, and people would see the statue and say, okay, this is the work. But you couldn't bring it out of Italy. So how are these panels telling the story that you want to tell?
Yeah, so these panels, first of all, are made with the HD pictures and stamped. So we have 3 sections. The first section is about the origins. The second section is about rediscovery. And the third section we call it New Renaissance, because linked to the Renaissance work that they are talking about. In the first section, we focus on three topics. So which was the artist, Giovanni da Nola, who was a pretty important artist of the Neapolitan Renaissance, the church, that, as we said a number of times, has been affected by the earthquake in the 80s, but it has an amazing history through the centuries, because it's a 1384 church, so it's a 14th century church, and the statues themselves, so the both statues. A little bit of their story. You see that the design of these panels are also pretty artistic. We thank for this our architect Pasquale La Rosa that conceived this concept for the exhibition. Then in the rediscovery, we have the focus on both statues, the Archangel and the Virgin Mary, and a focus on the church. And we have in the middle of the centerpiece, there's also an art installation that, as we said in the talk before, it represents the several layers that we had on the statues. In this case, we go to the first edition, to the part where you see the red parts that are damages, and then the shining ones. And we have also some of the tools that be used by the restaurator, and some of the tiles of the church. There's also reproduction, but just to show you what is the contrast between the color as
These are the tiles that were on the floor.
yeah, but this is our reproduction of them. And then we go to the new glory of the new Renaissance, in which we can see the status of the look today and part of the restoration process. To end this visit over here, you have a VR station in which you can wear the VR equipment.
That's the key to this.
Yeah.
Is that VR equipment right
There's the VR equipment, and you can actually enter the church 300. You are immersed, like you are in the real church, and you see the statues when the artist want a day to stay. So right on the church, because now they are moved to the museum. So you can see them there. You can see them before the restoration. Just with a single click, you can go after the restoration and see the difference. And you can see the church as it looks today. So empty, dusty. So it's an experience that unfortunately you can make in Buccino anymore, but you can do that through the VR.
All right, everybody out there. So for all our podcast listeners, I am down here now. I am in the exhibition. I thought this was, I couldn't understand this when I came here. If you're watching, you see what's going on right now. If you're not, I'm going to describe it. I have these glasses on, they're like binoculars. And I am standing in the church in Buccino. I can't get over this. So I get it now what this whole exhibition is, because I'm actually, everywhere I look is the actual church in Buccino. It's like I'm there. And I can see where would be the, I guess, the part of the sanctuary where the altar rail, between the altar rail, and I see the floor of the sanctuary of Buccino, and that's where these two statues are. And I can see what the restored tile would look like and what this church would look like when the statues in the Renaissance are brought here. I am absolutely blown away. This is absolutely spectacular. If this is the kind of Italian-American programming you want to hear and see, like, subscribe, comment, pass it, and send it on to your friends and family. These are great shows. I hope you get to see this show if it visits someplace by you. Thank you very much for watching. Until we see you next time, thank you very much.
That you're born in Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born in Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born in Italiano